I left home that summer not with a bang, but with a whimper. It wasn't some massive explosion of drama, just a long, exhausting argument with my parents about my career and my future. My dad told me I was a stranger to them. My mom said I was throwing my life away, so I threw some clothes in a laundry basket, grabbed my laptop, and just drove. I had this sinking feeling in my gut, but I kept driving until the sun went down. A buddy from college heard about my situation and hooked me up. He knew a guy named Tom who was looking for a roommate. Apparently, Tom traveled constantly for work, which sounded perfect to me. I just wanted a place to be alone and cool off. I met Tom at a coffee shop. He seemed normal enough. Buzz cut, clean clothes, tall. He told me the house was in an older neighborhood, a narrow 2-bedroom place, with wood floors and high ceilings. He mentioned he worked odd hours and would actually be gone for a week, right after I moved in. We signed a simple lease he printed out himself, and that was it. Moving in felt good at first. I had a cheap creaky bed frame and a lamp with a crooked shade. I put my keys in an old ceramic dish my mom gave me. For that first week while Tom was gone, it was exactly what I needed. I cooked, I cleaned, and I started running again. I convinced myself I had made the right choice. But then, things started feeling off. It started with the front door. The lock was usually sticky. You had to really pull on the handle to turn the key. But one day I came home and the key turned effortlessly. The door felt loose in the frame. I told myself it was just the humidity, but I was paranoid enough to buy and install a new deadbolt that same day. At night, the house made noises. I know old houses settle, but this was different. I would hear faint scuffing sounds in the hallway, like someone walking around in socks. I'd trace the sound to Tom's bedroom door, but when I shone my phone flashlight under the crack, I saw nothing. I forced myself to laugh it off. When Tom finally came back, he was barely there. He slept, did laundry, and left again 2 days later. But the second he was gone, the silence in the house felt heavy. One morning my keys weren't in the bowl. I found them sitting on the kitchen counter. I had no memory of putting them there, but I figured I was just tired. 2 nights later, a book on my nightstand had moved. I always kept it face down with a receipt marking my page. When I woke up, it had been shifted closer to the lamp, and the receipt was tucked in deeper. It was such a small detail, but it made my skin crawl. I tried to convince myself I had bumped it in my sleep. A week later, I woke up before sunrise with the overwhelming feeling that someone had been standing outside my room. I opened my door, but the hallway was empty, just the streetlights casting shadows on the floor. When Tom returned from his trip, he looked exhausted. Over breakfast, he dropped a weird comment. He told me that if I ever heard noises from his room while he was gone, I shouldn't worry. He said his friend stays over sometimes. I tried to keep my face straight. A friend. He just gave me a thin smile and said, "Yeah, just sometimes. It's no big deal," and changed the subject. He left again that afternoon. That night I stood in the hallway staring at his closed door. The idea of a stranger being in the house without warning didn't sit right with me. I texted my college friend, who told me Tom was just a private guy, and to not worry about it. I didn't listen. I bought a small motion sensor camera online. I felt a bit creepy setting it up, but I hid it on a shelf in the living room, angled so it could see the hallway and both our bedroom doors. For 3 nights, nothing happened. On the 4th night, at 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I opened the app, my heart pounding. The video showed the empty hallway. Then the camera focused. A shadow slid out of Tom's room. It was the shape of a person, shoulders hunched, head leaning forward. The figure stood directly in front of my bedroom door and just stayed there, perfectly still, for over a minute. Then it stepped back and Tom's door closed. I didn't see a hand pull it shut. I watched that clip 4 times. I wanted to check the hallway, but I was frozen in fear. I stayed awake until the sun came up. I texted Tom in the morning. "Your friend was here last night just checking." Hours later, he replied, "Yeah, sometimes he crashes. He's cool. No apology, no name." I was angry, but mostly I was terrified. I started keeping my keys in my pocket. I wedged a chair under my doorknob every night. I even put a piece of clear tape across the crack of my door to see if anyone opened it while I was asleep. I started looking at the house differently. There was a hatch in the hallway ceiling that led to the attic. I dragged a ladder over and looked closely. There were distinct smudges on the dusty panel, like fingers had pushed it up recently. I felt cold air drifting down, but I didn't have the guts to open it. 2 nights later, the camera alerted me again at 5 a.m. The shadow was back in Tom's doorway, just watching my room. The stillness of the figure was the worst part. I called my friend again. He told me to talk to Tom and set boundaries, but at least he didn't call me crazy. I went out and bought an even stronger lock for my bedroom door. I became obsessed with the camera feed. At 2:40 a.m., another alert. The shadow was there again, catching the faint light from the street. It felt like he knew I was watching. The next morning I called Tom. I told him I couldn't handle a stranger in the house at night. His voice got sharp. He said, "He's not a stranger to me. He doesn't bother anything. He stands in my doorway and watches the hall," I said. Tom laughed, but it sounded forced. "You're scaring yourself with that camera." He told me he'd be back the next day to talk. When Tom arrived, I was waiting. I demanded answers. He leaned against the counter, looking tired. He repeated the same story. It was just a friend between places who used his room. "What's his name?" I asked. Tom stared at me like I was the one being unreasonable. "Not your problem. He's gone. Chill." That night with Tom home, I slept a little better because I wasn't alone, but worse because of the tension. The camera didn't pick up anything. Tom left early the next morning. I decided to take control. I started cleaning the house, scrubbing everything. When I got to Tom's door, it was slightly ajar. I knocked, then pushed it open. The room was plain. Dresser, chair, blinds shut. The air smelled stale. I swept the floor, and that's when I saw it. Under the bed, there was a dark shape. I lifted the bed skirt. My mouth went dry. Strapped tightly against the wall was a rolled-up sleeping bag. Next to it was a half-unzipped duffel bag full of clothes. And sitting right on top was a knife, a black handle, no sheath. This wasn't a kitchen knife. I backed out of the room, closing the door to exactly how it was before. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I texted Tom immediately. "We need to talk. Now." No reply. 20 minutes later, he burst through the front door. He looked calm, but his eyes were intense. "What did you do in my room?" "I was cleaning," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I found a sleeping bag and a knife under your bed." He stared at me, then gave a tight, unnatural smile. "You shouldn't be in my room." "We agreed on safety," I shot back. "This isn't safe." He stepped closer, and I could smell his sour breath. "My friend has a hard life. He needs a place. He keeps things there." "Who is he?" "Don't worry about it," he snapped. That was it. I went to my room, packed a bag, and called the landlord to break the lease. I texted my friend that I was leaving. I could hear Tom pacing in his room, drawers opening and closing, the bed frame scraping against the floor. That night I sat with the chair wedged under my doorknob and my backpack on. At 2 a.m., I heard Tom's door open and close. At 2:31, my phone buzzed. The sensor above my door showed a spike in motion. Soft footsteps walked past my door, paused, and then continued down the hall. The front door opened slowly and clicked shut. I waited 30 minutes before I dared to peek out. The hallway was empty. I checked the window, nobody outside. Just parked cars and an empty street. I left as soon as the sun came up and checked into a motel for a week. I slept with my bag against the door and the TV on. On the third day, I went back to the house at noon to get the mail. Tom was gone. The house was sweltering hot. I checked his door, knocked, and went in. The bed skirt was gone. No sleeping bag, no duffel, no knife. But on the dresser, there was a spare key with a red plastic top. It was scratched up, and it definitely wasn't one of ours. I didn't touch it. I changed the front door lock again and sent Tom a picture of it. He just replied, "Cool." I asked if his friend was coming back. He never answered. I realized later that the silence I had felt in the house wasn't peace. It was someone practicing being quiet. I broke the lease. It cost me a lot of money and my pride, but I didn't care. Tom didn't fight it. We parted ways over text with no hard feelings. I left the camera in its box. I learned a small but heavy lesson. Always trust your gut. If a lock feels different, if a book moves, if keys go missing, believe it. And if you find a sleeping bag and a knife under a bed, you haven't found the beginning of the mystery. You've found the middle. The beginning happened while you were sleeping, and the rest was already on its way. Just soft steps in a dark hallway, waiting for you to close your eyes.